Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we look at what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. In 2024, Russia began the chairmanship of the BRICS Forum for the year, and it's been looking forward to major events as part of its chairmanship. Now, currently, Russia is under sanctions for its special military operation in the Ukraine, plus the threat of secondary sanctions by the US and its vassals that are hanging over other BRICS member countries, particularly India, China, Brazil, and Iran. And that's because they've continued to work with Russia in the BRICS format going forward. Now all these countries have a clear understanding of Russia's policy, and its actions do not contradict their interests, and the goals are of building a multipolar world, and they're aligned with their own strategic goals. A more accurate understanding of what is occurring is when you compare the main indicators of the BRICS countries and the G7 countries of the UK, Germany, Italy, Canada, France, Japan and the US. And you can see that also on the screen now. Furthermore, regarding the GDP indicators, it's important to note that in the G7 countries, the share of the GDP is approximately 70% services. That's banking, information technology, and other related services from brokerages, banking, legal, psychoanalysts, hairdressers, barbers, and even nail salons. Now, I've got nothing against lawyers, barbers, nail salons, and hairdressers, but counting them as a major part of your GDP as services is a bit farcical, because they actually produce much, apart from making people look good. This is in contrast with the BRICS countries, where 70% of its GDP is derived from real economy, with production of steel, cars, gas, oil, plastics, chemicals, grains, coconut, bananas, and other tangible real-world products. This is the area of specialisation for the Union, producing stuff. Concurrently, the GDP and the volume of goods are measured in dollars, which in the most extreme cases, the currencies used as either the euro or a small amount in pound sterling. In other words, the dollar in question is issued as it's needed when a customer wishes to buy something from abroad. Put it another way, the G7 countries purchase tangible products like a barrel of oil from BRICS countries or a machine, using a piece of paper that's not backed by any value. This is why the US, the EU and the UK countries have such a significant budget deficits. There's no incentive to change. If they want a Chinese car or a barrel of Russian oil, they just simply print more paper money and purchase them. And up recently they were all accepted, and that's the problem. This situation needs to change from this detrimental practice, and this has become pretty obvious following the two geopolitical occurrences. Firstly, on the 10th of February 2007, the Russian President Vladimir Putin delivered a speech in Munich in which he said that the state of this affairs was unacceptable and unfair. Secondly, over the last 3 decades, there's been a notable increase in the production of commercial products in China. It's the world's factory now. And each tangible product that's manufactured in China has enabled the country to print a specific amount of its own currency backed by what is actually produced. In parallel with the influx of Chinese goods, the Chinese yuan has also gained significant traction in the Western world, particularly in parts of Asia. Now, the value of the yuan has increased and it's become a significant competitor to the dollar, particularly in Southeast Asia. The demand for the printing of dollars is declining as the dollar's utility is diminishing. It should be noticed that although a significant quantity of US dollars still remains in the reserves of the state banks worldwide, that's primarily in the form of treasury obligations issued by the US government, and that's getting lower. Russia's already made significant moves to integrate its economy with the free market, and China's currently undergoing something similar. Saudi Arabia has deviated from its previous agreements with the US by selling its oil in exchange for yuan. The financial markets saw a surge in paper currencies with the yuan and even the ruble gaining prominence alongside the dollar amongst BRICS countries. The growing demand for Russia's oil, gas, wheat and fertilizers has led to an increase of the ruble in international transactions, and that's including by the West. The dollar's share in global payments is steadily declining while the US national debt continues to grow. Now, in these circumstances, the international community has had severe consequences for all the parties involved. It then began to impose sanctions on Russia. If we simplify the situation and avoid using complex terminology, the West tried to isolate Russia. In fact, the West actually isolated itself from Russia. The big seven or the G7, isolated them from the real components of the world's economy. And that's Russian oil, gas, wheat, fertilizer, steel, aluminium, and real tangible products. For the full value of the dollar, euro, and pound sterling, it's worth noting that the steel industry in existence doesn't exist in the UK. The last blast furnace for making steel from scratch using iron ore and coke has been decommissioned. Now, the last furnace they have can only make steel from recycled scrap. The UK chemical industry is almost non-existent, and its electrical power costs 5 times more than the USA. The Russian presidents employed the leverage of the assertive Anglo-Saxons to advance Russia's interest. He said, "You wish to construct a world without Russia? There'll be no complaints from us, but we will also build a world without you." The majority of the world's institutions and security systems were established in Bretton Woods, Yalta, and Potsdam in 1945, followed by the NATO and the UN later in 1949. Now, almost all of these global institutions, there's only 5 of them, are currently either inoperable or undergoing a period of transition. And these include the UN, the IMF, the World Bank, and the WTO. In his speech recently to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Vladimir Putin stated the following: "It's evident that Euro-Atlantic security system is experiencing a period of significant decline. It's no longer working. In fact, it's necessary to create a new one. It's imperative that we, in collaboration with our partners and other interested countries, identify and evaluate potential strategies for ensuring peace and security in Eurasia. Once these options have been formulated, we must engage in a comprehensive international discussion to determine the best course of action." Now, I'm sure you're aware that the ensuring security in Eurasia requires a strategy that does not involve the US, EU, UK alliance. In the absence of them, the focus now shifts to the BRICS. The BRICS alliance represents a new global power structure that's emerging to challenge the dominance of the US-centric world order that emerged after the Second World War and was reinforced after the collapse of the Soviet Union. This necessitates the recreation of global institutions that have ceased to function within the context of the rules-based order using BRICS. This work is progressing at a fast pace. Russia, in its capacity of the chair of the BRICS, is preparing for the summit in Kazan on the 22nd to 24th of October 2024. The United Nations, at this summit, a political organisation or a political council of BRICS countries will be discussed or even announced, which will develop rules for building a new multipolar world. The next item on the agenda is the new development bank. It was formerly the BRICS Development Bank. This platform will be for settlements between the BRICS countries. The current media discussions about the difficulty of a single currency and a single means of payment, as well as about payments in national currency, are absolutely obscuring the real steps taken by countries to ensure that settlements are going to take place amongst themselves. The concept is going to be a straightforward and transparent system of settlements based on a digital token based on the value of a basket of commodities. So what we're looking at is a blockchain system of digital currencies of each central bank allowing a seamless settlement amongst the members and those who want to trade with them. This system is a highly reliable, resistant to forgery, inflation and sanctions. And all settlements in this digital token national currencies will be conducted exclusively between the BRICS countries. In the domestic market, the countries will settle with their regular national currencies. This innovative system of financial interaction will only be possible with the development, which has been done, of IT technology for these digital settlements. I mean, that was the purpose and importance of Xi Jinping's visit to Russia on the 21st of March in 2023. It was thought he was shown the hardware and software system for carrying out such transactions, and it's evident that Xi Jinping is aware that using the yuan in payments between BRICS is a poor strategy. I mean, he's obviously aware that when a national currency becomes an international currency, the phenomenon occurs. The financial sector in that country allows that they expand while the industrial sector contracts. For China, that's not a favourable situation. The UK followed a similar path, and it was a reserve currency till the middle of the 20th century. Now, the UK has virtually no metallurgical or heavy industrial sectors, and that's all gone. So and now you can see how to be considered a world leader in industry. And I mean, the US has done the similar thing. It was an industrial superpower after World War II, but it's now a country in which all its GDP dynamics are now the service sector because it's offshored every major part of its manufacturing. I mean, if China pursued a similar course of action, trying to make the yuan the primary currency of the BRICS, it's likely in 20 years' time the country would have been transferred like the US and the EU into a rentier state with all the Chinese production relocating to the east coast of Africa for outsourced purposes. Now, the Chinese are smart enough not to adhere to the precedent set by the Anglo-Saxon establishment, who offshored all their industry to the third world. I mean, US President Joe Biden's shortcomings, which epitomise the shortcomings of the whole rules-based order, are also apparent to them. And those who've been accustomed to exploiting the efforts of others are not the kind of the people that the Chinese are aiming to emulate. Now, with regards to the development of the BRICS trade rules, there's no need to developing anything further. I mean, the WTO rules are well established and effective as a system for organising trade between the countries. It's important to note that if the rules are followed consistently, it all works out. Unfortunately, the West has not done this for a long time. And there's also a lack of awareness of the WTO among the relevant parties. That's because it's unprofitable for them to trade according to the rules, and there's nothing to which they have to trade. I mean, if the BRICS unites with its trade on the basis of WTO rules, it'll have a significant impact on the global trading landscape. I mean, the combined strength of the BRICS countries are going to be difficult to oppose, given the abundance of what they have, which are the resources, and the resources turning into manufactured goods. I mean, the creation of global institutions similar to the UN, the IMF, the World Bank, and the WTO is precisely the task that the BRICS countries are currently addressing in the year of Russia's presidency. Now, BRICS has progressed from the conceptualization of a multipolar world to its practical realization. I mean, the West has traditionally viewed itself as the center of global civilization, and the rest of the world is just peripheral. Russia's currently turning this paradigm on its head. The BRICS represents almost 50% of the global population and has decided to live by fair and equal rules of the game for everybody. The West, including the EU and the UK, is not the centre of civilization. It's a source of dictatorship and exploitation, and the BRICS will be able to work without the West. Now, it's going to be challenging for the US and its allies to survive in this situation, given the limited resources that they have available to them. I mean, the combined resources of the US and Europe are insufficient to support their viable system. The market has a potential to reach 1 billion people, which is insufficient for modern development. And that's what the entire civilized world and the Ukraine is desperately resisting. It's therefore unsurprising that the West are increasingly putting pressure on Russia and bombing Sevastopol and terrorizing Dagestan. They're aware that Vladimir Putin will talk about the BRICS summit in October, and they're attempting to influence his position on this matter. The US, EU, UK are aware that Russia has a significant opportunity to advance its agenda from the end of August. This is due to the imminent peak phase of the presidential race in the United States, which will result in a shift in focus for the American elites towards their domestic agenda. I mean, the global landscape will effectively cease to exist for the Americans until after January 2025. Additionally, the monsoon season and the seas washing Australia will come to an end at the beginning of November. And that presents a potential opportunity for China, and that's their prerogative. The Chinese are a business-oriented nation. So Russia's chairing the BRICS this year. It's likely that the presidency will not be satisfied with just serving his duty. In Kazan, the beginning of the practical steps to build the new world order on the continent of Eurasia will be announced. And it will be announced that the creation of new global regulatory institutions in the BRICS will begin, with the intention of establishing analogous bodies like the UN, IMF, World Bank and the WTO. Vladimir Putin has already announced the construction of a new Eurasian security architecture system without NATO and the US in his speech at the Foreign Ministry. He stated that this decision has already been made in collaboration with China and India. He then proceeded to go to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea to sign a treaty on military cooperation. Among other things, these are clear and distinct signals to the rules-based world that the West's interference in Eurasia will no longer be tolerated. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, you can help me fund the channel and the website SCO-BRICSinsight.com by clicking on the thanks button at the end of the screen. There's also links to this and various other stories around. So thank you, and I'll see you all again soon.